So talk a little bit about the importance of TBB, right? Because from my understanding, a lot has come out of that crew, right? Like, for example,
Um,
I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like even somehow, some way, Rocksteady is sort of connected somehow through TBB as well,
Absolutely.
right?
Um, so Batch was breaking in 1970. So this is particular. 1979, June 16th. He had a meeting at St. James Park, and he was breaking up TBB because there were wild dudes getting into a lot of street stuff and all of this stuff, and and they were kind of looking more like a gang than like a b-boy crew. Now the thing that people have to understand about b-boy crews back then, not everybody was a b-boy, or everybody danced. You had people who were family members, guys and girls who supported. Some were writers. We had a lot of writers in the crew. We had DJs in the crew, whatever, whatnot. Who are still prevalent to this day, doing their thing. And you had family, what we call family members. So back then, it's more like a family, slash crew, because there were some hardships back then, and they literally would like live together in abandoned buildings. I mean, we all know the stories about how rough the Bronx was, and parents not being around, whether it be poverty, addictions, etc., and all that stuff. So they galvanized amongst each other, through jams at what they call clubhouses, which were burned down buildings and all that stuff. And sometimes they would stay there and live there, and had like accommodations like running water and electricity.
Right.
But to get back to like the rock steady thing, so again, Batch broke up the crew in 1979, June 16th, 1979. So you have two members from the Burnside chapter of TBB, JoJo and JoJo. I mean, my bad. Jimmy D and Jimmy Lee,
Okay.
who started. They wanted to continue the dance. So that's where the rock and rock steady comes from. Because they want to rock steady. Um, so they made up rock steady. So now when I explain these things to people, I say rock steady, but and that's the crew from '79. Now when you talk about rock steady crew, that's 1980 and on. So and there's pictures of them. We have pictures of them. Two pictures of Jojo. I keep saying Jojo because he was later on a part of them.
Right. Right.
Jimmy D and Jimmy Lee. There's a picture of them. In '79, and in the back of those pictures it says Rocksteady TBB. So they still like they didn't want to give up the whole TBB narrative of the crew and the whole nine. So they went with Rocksteady, and they've that's how they repped. Later on it was passed on in 1980 or whatever, whatnot. So anybody who was going around saying Rocksteady was around in 1977, there's a well of a lot of OGs who will say that's not actually true.
Okay. Okay. Well,
And again, there I could provide you the pictures of Jimmy D and Jimmy Lee.
for sure, for sure. I'm just saying because I know I've always heard the '77 as the I guess whatever you want to call it, the birth date of Rocksteady.
Yeah. That's impossible
That's
because TBB was around when Rocksteady Crew came about. All fractions of any TBB um any any versions of TBB were all gone by
okay.
1980, except for one chapter, which was just pretty much they really weren't repping around like that, but they were still around. This is something that a lot of people really don't know. Even some TBB members don't know this. But
Hmm.
talking to the president of that chapter, we were going through the history, we were breaking some stuff down, and he was like, "Yo, we were actually still around until about 84, you know, or whatnot. But every other chapter, you know, had dissipated. And, you know, they were, you know, there were a lot of chapters they rolled deep back then.
For sure.